Two things that I have always loved to do is make people happy and help those in need. My earliest memories of childhood involved dressing up in costumes and singing, modeling. I would have fashion shows with my aunt every time we went to the beach, always having several wardrobe changes throughout the day. I loved to make people laugh, and I would also model in Rich's department store. I could stand perfectly still as a 4-year-old next to a mannequin, and people would walk by and laugh. And I thought that was great, so I decided to become a teacher. But in my much younger days, while I was shy around certain individuals, particularly strangers, it never stopped me from singing, dancing, playing the piano, and being a ventriloquist. Yes, I have a dummy. My cousin and I would go and entertain vacation Bible schools, banquets, birthday parties. It was so much fun. But I wasn't happy just to entertain. I kind of wanted to help people too. So I took my ventriloquist act on the road. And I went to Children's Hospital, and I was able to visit sick children. Even though I was only a teenager myself, they would take me to rooms of sick kids, and I would try to just brighten their day for just a few minutes. One of the best pieces of advice I ever received from one of those nurses was, if you really want to help them, you can't focus on their illness, the tubes, the monitors, their bald heads. You just have to focus on their smile and try to help them forget where they are and why they're there. That advice has served me very well throughout my life. I still use it. And I appreciated it so much. So fast forward to adulting. When I got here to Cherokee, I have performed as Madonna and Britney Spears. And every year, well, almost every year, the science department has won because we know how to bring it. And that was always fun, but I also wanted to entertain, off the stage, in the classroom. I wanted to make people happy. So I decided to teach chemistry. Newsflash, people hate chemistry. But I did find that while the students did in fact hate the course, they enjoyed being in my classroom. Because while some educators pride themselves in being brilliant and dignified, I pride myself in being able to reach the lowest learners, those kids who are terrified of math. And what they didn't see coming is that chemistry is mostly math. So I would make up poems, songs, goofy raps, anything to help them remember those harder concepts. I even earned the rapper name, 2 Cent Thomas. But I also wanted to expand my scope just a tad, and I loved working with the neglected, the underdog, if you will. And so one year, several years ago, a special ed teacher and I decided to bring her severe and profoundly intellectually disabled kids into my classroom anytime we did a lab activity. Now, these are the kids who stay in one room all day long with a teacher and a parapro. And now we were getting to introduce them to my students in my classroom, and it was the best time I've ever had in the classroom. And at the beginning of the year, I would make sure to tell my students that we were going to have these students in here with us, and it would be okay. If you're not really comfortable yet, you're not really ready to pair up, that's okay. But it didn't take long before my students were fighting over who got to work with those students. And it became amazing as we learned those students' individual personalities. We had 2 boys that only wanted to work with cute girls. We had 1 girl that only wanted to work with the cute boys. And one young man's goal was just to put his paper in the basket at the front of the room, just like everybody else. And then another young lady's anxiety was so severe that she would sit out in the hallway, and her goal was just to be able to come into my class, sit at a lab table with everybody else. And it did take a while, but with a little bit of James Taylor CD and a cereal in a bowl, we got her in there, and she enjoyed herself. But the biggest thing we learned from all of this is that while these students may have significant differences in their mobility, their communication, their social skills, they all are just like typical teenagers. They just want to be accepted and be loved by everyone else. This is my favorite quote from Ronald Reagan. We can't help everyone, but everyone can help someone. The students in my classroom got to reach out to other students, and they made a distinct effort to speak to them when they would see them in the halls, speak to them by name when they saw them in the cafeteria. Do you have any idea how fantastic that was for both students? And other great things came from that activity. I had several students tell me after that year that they had decided to devote their education and career to working with people with special needs. I had other students decide to join the Friends Club, which is an organization here at Cherokee where our students plan social events for our students with special needs. That group of students has been so loved and accepted here at Cherokee for all the years that I've been here that we've even had them as members of our homecoming court. So we love them, and we want to reach out and make a difference. It's all about making new connections and lasting friendships. Now, I will say that I not only love to make humans happy and help them, I also have a very special place in my heart for rescues. While my husband was deployed, my two sons and I fostered 16 litters of kittens for our animal shelter. And it was in fostering those kittens that I really learned the true meaning of homelessness with pets and neglect. We had a blast. During that time, they received rescued horses. Okay, they knew that my favorite thing in the world was horses, and I was more than happy to help take care of a rescued stallion who we named Copper. He had never had any positive interaction with humans, so it was my job to earn his trust. And the way I did that was to offer him treats. And it took a long time. It was a slow process, but eventually he did show me that he did not like carrots. What horse doesn't like carrots? But he didn't. So I had to change my game plan, and I went into the cafeteria one day, and I asked one of my dear friends, and I said, "How much is it for apples?" She said, 50 cents, but don't dare pay for it. Kids throw them all over the place. So it was that day I realized that every single day, apples, carrots, bananas are getting thrown away by the tons. And so on my way home from work, I stopped and bought me a giant rubber trash can on wheels, and it became our official treat trough. And there, it only takes a few minutes of my time each week to set up and collect the apples and the carrots and the bananas, and I take them to rescues nearby. And I'd not only take them to horses, but goats, cows, pigs, donkeys. I'm an equal opportunity spoiler. But it was in going to these rescues that I discovered Trinity Rescue, which was only about 20 minutes from my house. It was there that I met the most amazing little mini rescued horse named Xena. She was born with very deformed legs, and her owners were going to have her put down. But when she was 2 days old, she was rescued by Trinity, and they paid to have the surgery, several surgeries to restore the function to her legs, and now she is a superstar ambassador for the rescue, and she's the one that goes to visit elementary schools, nursing homes, and children's hospitals just to share her special kind of joy to the world. And her story was so special that she was entered in a nationwide contest, and she beat out hundreds of other rescues to become a little Xena plush doll from the Shelter Pet Corporation. And so now she has her own plushie. Shortly after that, one of the volunteers at Trinity decided to write a children's book to tell Xena's story. I could not get my hands on a copy of that book fast enough, so I bought one as soon as I was able. Two of my best friends own a farm with a petting zoo where they have reading time with Miss Sandy for little toddlers. So I thought, I've got to get this in their hands. So one Saturday after a trail ride, we went to lunch. And as soon as we finished eating lunch, we headed outside and sat on a park bench where we read Xena's story. There we were, 3 grown women sitting on a park bench, and me doing my thing, not caring what anybody else thought because I'm doing what I love. Well, that was all fine until one of my coworkers walked by with her boyfriend. And so they chuckled and laughed and walked on by. Well, I couldn't stand it, so I just said, okay, here's the deal. We're reading a story. It's a true story about a precious horse that I love named Xena, and it's an amazing story, and I would give anything to put it in every single school in the county, but I'm not rich. So they nodded politely and kept walking. Then I kind of died of embarrassment. But 5 seconds later, he comes back and hands me his business card and says, "How many we talking here?" And I was stunned, and I said, "Well, I think 45 schools total." And as he hands me his business card, he says, "I'll buy 100. Oh my goodness. That was the most awesome moment ever. And what had just happened here? The three of us had tears in our eyes and were just overwhelmed. And I thought maybe this is a new trend. And I looked up to heaven and said, "Okay, I'd like a horse, please." Nobody brought me their business card. But that's okay. With the help of my media specialist, I was able to put a copy of Xena's book, and I purchased the little plush dolls for all our elementary school kids so that the children could hold little Xena while they read her story. And I was able to put it in the hands of each school in the county just because of one man's generosity. And he wanted to remain anonymous, and I'll totally honor his wishes, but I'll never forget how cool that was. But I would like to point out that you can help people and you can make them happy without writing big checks, okay? One of the most valuable assets you have to offer anyone is your time. And we all have the same amount, 24 hours in a day. But it's what you do with it that makes a difference. It's the connections you make in those 24 hours that's the game changer. My time, a couple of years ago, when my boys were in middle school and high school and their dad was gone, they got picked on and bullied. So we put them in karate. Okay, that's 3 nights a week, earned their black belt for years. And I thought, oh, this is so boring because they didn't drive, so I had to take them and I had to sit there. And it wasn't long enough for me to go all the way home and come straight back. And it wasn't long enough to really grade papers because who wants to do that? And I found that there's a nursing home right up the street. And I found out that some of the members of my church live there. So I got their names and numbers and I started visiting for just 1 hour. It didn't take any special training. It didn't take any money. All it took was just a little bit of time. When I would walk into that room and see someone that's lonely and hurting and see their eyes open wide with excitement, my day was made. And it didn't matter how tired I was. I didn't do any grandiose thing. They helped me. They restored my soul because they helped me get the focus off my problems, my whatever was bugging me, and I got to focus on them. And it was just the biggest blessing ever to build those relationships. And just like the young people, the special needs student, people need to feel valued and loved. And I will leave you with my favorite quote. Make connections and make a difference. And we can't help everyone, but everyone can help someone. Thank you.